Smart 24, driving business.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Financial Markets. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. My name is Anthony, and this is, of course, the number one show that brings you the latest on investment in the financial markets. The show is proudly brought to you by Otex East Africa. And with Otex East Africa, we're saying you can do something new. Otex says no hustle, no money. And with Zabu, my money, my future, you can buy treasury bonds in East Africa. All you need to do is simply dial *292# and follow the prompts. And you will be able to register and interact with other traders on the market. Otex East Africa is saying the number one thing you need to know is that affordability and access have been brought together to have convenience on the market. You can be a farmer, you can be a teacher, an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer. Anyone can invest using Otex East Africa. Otex markets open at 8 a.m. and close at exactly 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Otex, you can do something new. Let's delve right into the business of a stock exchange here on the Uganda Stock Exchange on Thursday. Thursday was the second last day, and today being Friday, we also reflect upon the week, how the week has moved in as far as trading is concerned. Now, the Uganda Stock Exchange has 18 listings, of which 8 are domestic cross listings and 10 domestic listings. And as per Wednesday trade, only 5 equities participated in trade, a number which is the record high for the week, comparing with the previous 4 days of trading on the Uganda Stock Exchange. In aggregate, we had at least over about 4 gainers and 5 losers on the other hand, which negatively impacted the all-share index. But when you look at the top gainers, there was a shocker here with NIC coming in at the top of the table, and NIC led the gainers with a 5.26% appreciation in price, closing off at 6.0 Ugandan shillings per share. It was followed by MTN Uganda with the 0.58% appreciation in price, and Equity Bank at least 5.2% appreciation in price. Kenya Airways also added 0.11% on their value, closing off or sealing the day with a price of 99.08 Ugandan shillings. Well, let's have a look at NIC. NIC hasn't been that active, and the stock hasn't been that volatile in a while. But yesterday, the stock price improved by 5.26%. with an increase of 0.3 Ugandan shillings up to at least 6.0 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, this was after an 86,000 volume was traded of shares at 520,000 Ugandan shillings. And currently, the market capitalization of the company has also gone up to 8.49 billion Ugandan shillings. NIC currently is representing about 0.05% of the entire equity market on the Uganda Securities Exchange at exactly 8.49 billion Ugandan shillings. The performance of the stock has been quite good, especially in the long and shorter run, with a year-to-date improvement of 20%. Well, the stock began with a price of 5% this year, and right now at 5 shillings rather. Right now at 6 shillings, you're counting gains of at least over 20% on their price, ranking them the third on the Uganda Securities Exchange in terms of year-to-date performance. Shareholders can also be highly optimistic about the performance of the National Insurance Corporation this year, as the company also was able to make a profit out of their performance in 2022. Also, they have accrued 9% over the last 4 weeks of value. That is National Insurance Corporation. In as far as trading is concerned, NIC is the 6th most traded on stock on the exchange in the past 1 quarter. When you look at the last 1 quarter, at least NIC has traded a total of 7.19 million shares valued at 36.1 million Ugandan shillings over the period of 3 months, with an average of about 114,000 for every trading session. That is NIC for you. MTN Uganda remains resilient, now at 170.09, actually 0.98 Ugandan shillings. The stock realized a gain of over 0.58% on Thursday evening by the close of business. Currently, MTN Uganda is the second most valuable stock after sliding back slightly in market capitalization, now at 3.83 trillion. They are in close proximity with Equity Bank. Equity Bank is also coming in very, very close when it comes to market capitalization, but still MTN is currently the top dog as we speak on the market. At least over 159,600 shares were traded yesterday, and that was at 27.3 million Ugandan shillings. Very good turnover there for the company, and about 22.4 billion shares are currently floating on the exchange for MTN Uganda. MTN Uganda is still also currently the 3rd most traded on stock over the past 3 months on the exchange. MTN within the period has traded over 34.6 million shares valued at 5.8 billion Ugandan shillings over the period, as well, with an average of about 548,000 shares traded for every trading session. That's it from MTN. East African Breweries Limited and Jubilee Holdings, Centum Investments, Kenya Commercial Bank, and Nation Media Group were the bottom losers for Thursday. The stocks declined based not on participation but on factors such as the weakening Ugandan shilling and the currency, as well as pressure coming in from inflation and other external factors. Remember, for price movements, it's not only the trading of shares that can move prices, especially for companies that are cross-listed. There are factors like the foreign exchange rates, the inflation that can be factored into the price of these stocks, because they are cross-listed. Mainly, they have primary stock exchanges, and now they have secondary stock exchanges, where now Uganda is the secondary stock exchange. So the movement does not depend just on who has bought or who has sold. It also depends on what is the foreign exchange rate between the Ugandan shillings and the Kenyan shillings. That can actually move the stocks, as we can see right here on Thursday trades. Well, in summary, regarding the performance of the USE All-Share Index, which is the benchmark performance index for the exchange, the index at least dropped about 1.39 points down to 995 points on the exchange. And this was a week gain of 0.33% and a 4-week loss of 4.93%, and an overall year-to-date loss of at least 17.87%. The USE Local Company Index, LCI, which tracks the aggregate performance of the 10 domestic listings, on the other hand, increased by 0.31%, courtesy of the NIC and MTN Uganda stocks, which improved in terms of their pricing. And that's so, of course, the local company index as well gets to improve. And now we are counting 1 week gains of at least about 0.31%. So generally speaking, the domestic stocks haven't disappointed. To be honest, in the last 1 quarter, the performance of stocks like Stanbic Bank, MTN Uganda, Umeme, and now NIC coming on board as well as Bank of Baroda has been outstanding. The participation has been good. However, there is room for improvement, and that depends upon you and me and how we are going to invest in these particular markets. That's it from Uganda. Let's cross over to Nairobi Securities Exchange in a few and have a look at what the stocks there were like. Now, on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, we have 66 companies listed, and some are listed on the growth enterprise market segment. We have the main investment market segment, as well as the alternative market segment. The company also has fixed income securities listed. Now, amongst the 66 listed equities, only 47 participated in trade on Thursday, and the day ended with 17 gainers and 22 losers on the market. Kenya Orchards led the gainers with a gain of at least 9.67%, appreciating to a price of 16.45 Ugandan shillings per share. And then Car and General added at least 8.68%, up to closing price of about 14 Kenyan shillings, whereas the Safaricom stock as well improved by 6.33%. Now, Safaricom stock came still amongst the top movers with a movement of at least 7.02 million shares. The stock has improved, generally speaking, in the past couple of weeks after a very turbulent performance in the last 2 quarters, the first 2 quarters of 2023. Safaricom stocks currently is at 16.0 Ugandan shillings after yesterday appreciating about 0.05 Kenyan shillings up to the current 16.0 Kenyan shillings. The stock currently is the #1 most valuable stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange and has a market capitalization of close to 639 billion Kenyan shillings on the market, a 40% representation of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The Safaricom stock has had about 43 deals yesterday and 490,000 shares traded at 7.89 million Kenyan shillings. The company's performance has been shed, of course, by a couple of mishaps, but in the recent few weeks, there is hope that the stock will remain resilient, especially after establishing a very firm branch in Ethiopia, or subsidiary, which is Safaricom Ethiopia, competing with the big Ethiopian telecommunication company there in Ethiopia. And so the company currently is also listed on Altex East Africa. By the way, you need to check it out. And Altex has listed a few of shares there. You can check out their website at Altex to learn more of how you can invest in Safaricom via Altex East Africa. Well, on the losing side in Kenya, Nairobi Securities Exchange had a couple of losers, as we mentioned, 22 in total. But the bottom ones included Olympia Capital Holdings. Olympia Capital Holdings has also been not performing so well. And at the end of the day, yesterday, 9.75% was the percentage shed off from their price, closing the day with a 3.61 Kenyan shillings per share. It was followed by Jubilee Holdings Limited at 5.67% depreciation in price. And then Crown Paints Kenya at a 5.48% depreciation, whereas Stanbic Holdings at least shed of 4.76%. Safaricom, as I mentioned, recorded the biggest volume, including amongst other companies like Cooperative Bank of Kenya at 577,000 and Absa Bank at 275,000 shares. That is it from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Let's cross over to the United States stocks and have a look at what Thursday looked like. Now, US stocks on Thursday finished sharply lower for a third straight session after the glam August continued on Wall Street. The blue chip stocks, that is the big stocks on the big indices like the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Nasdaq fell mainly. When you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, for example, stocks fell by on average 0.8%, while on the benchmark index, the S&P 500, the stocks fell around the same amount, 0.8%, whereas the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite was down by 1% for the third consecutive day. Meanwhile, the 10-year Treasury, U.S. Treasury yield settled just below 4.3%, staying near the recent highs. Globally, the yields have hit highs not seen since the depths of the Great Recession. When you look at the health stocks as well, noticeably the CVS, they slammed by a report that the insurer Blue Shield of California looked to cut its reliance on the CVS for its pharmacy services. Instead turned to Amazon and Mark Cuban's drug firms. CVS stock finished the day more than 8% down as well. Meanwhile, concerns over the Fed's path on the interest rates have turned to the markets, and stocks ended firmly in red Wednesday after release of a few of the minutes of the Federal Reserve latest policy meeting, suggesting the committee remains focused on reining in inflation and won't rule out further hikes in the coming months as well as in the coming quarter. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. It's a Friday and the markets will be closing today at 1 p.m. and will be opening again on Monday. Until then, remember to trade with OTEX East Africa, buy treasury bonds and sell. You can also be able to buy Safaricom stocks now using OTEX East Africa. OTEX is saying they're making the markets much more accessible, much more affordable, and bringing them closer to you. Dial *292# and follow the prompts to be able to be part of OTEX East Africa's drive as we change the face of investment in East Africa. That's it. Thank you so much and have a very nice weekend. My name is Anthony once again. Follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sabali and Smart24 TV at Smart24 TV now. Till Monday, have a good weekend. Bye for now.